right, I've hit record. I assume we're not going to do the intro music thing because I don't know how, and I'm not going to sing "Hello, everybody." But
I think actually we all have to do it in unison because we are collectively Charles today.
yes. All right. Well, I'm just going to awkwardly go into this then. So this is a unique time in Friends Talking Fantasy podcast history for several reasons. One is it's going to be the first episode without the great Charles MC. And two, it's the most people we've ever had on a Friends Talking Fantasy podcast episode. And we're stuck with me to try to keep us on task, which we're going to see how well that goes. But I'm referring to this as the Shadow and Bone watch after party because we did do a Netflix party where we watched Shadow and Bone, which if you're reading the title, I assume you're aware that this is an episode on that. We're going to try to keep it spoiler free and keep it real high level conversation. And yeah, that's pretty much it from me. If y'all are listening to this, you probably know me by now. I'm Dylan, and I'm going to start having the rest of the awesome folks on this podcast episode introduce themselves. I'm gonna just go from the top left of my screen on this Brady Bunch style Zoom call down, and that means we're starting with you, Sarah.
Oh no.
Yeah, introduce.
So hi, I'm Sarah. I'm one half of Fiction Fans Podcast.
Mhm.
And we are a podcast where we read books and other words too. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at FictionFansPod, or email us at fictionfanspodcast@gmail.com. Our website is fictionfanspodcast.com. Hi, all.
I love that Sarah went first because that means I don't have to do all of the Twitter handles for Fiction Fans. I'm the other half. I'm Lily. And like all cool people, I'm only here for the after party.
Yeah. Yes, that's fair. Well, Lily, have you read or watched any Shadow and Bone stuff or Grishaverse stuff at all? I wanted to ask that.
No, absolutely not.
Cool. So you'll be the one to make sure we don't spoil anything.
I think I'm just here for the chaotic energy, frankly. It's too easy to moderate 4 people. We gotta give you some curveballs.
Thanks. Yeah, and I can't even moderate me and just me and Charles. So we'll see how well the after party goes from a chaos perspective. And yeah, that's the Fiction Fans folks. We've also got a booktuber extraordinaire, Sandra Gibbons, on. I guess I introduced you. I stole your. Yeah.
Sandra here. You can find me on YouTube at Sandra Gibbons, Twitter at Sandra Gibbons. I concentrate on fantasy, but I'm open to like fantasy adaptations, video games, that sort of thing. So yeah, I've read the Shadow and Bone books. I'm not finished with Rule of Wolves. So, but yes, and I've seen the show now 3 times. I don't have a problem. I promise.
Sandra is our resident super fan.
Yeah, it's called Darkling. But anywho, next.
I can finish this up. I'm Hannah. I'm from Our Pod. That's on Wednesdays We Read, which is a mouthful, but you can find us on all the social platforms at OWWR Pod, including Gmail. My other host could not make it today. She is busy farming, but I have only seen Shadow and Bone once. I finished the first book and I'm halfway through Six of Crows, which was touched on in the series. But
nice. Yeah, thanks, Hannah. And so pumped to have all you awesome folks on. Hannah, this is your first time on FTF. And yeah, we're super excited, or I am. I'm used to speaking for 2 people, but I'm super excited. I know Charles is super excited, and he's going to be pumped to edit all of this. So then, Sarah, I think you've been reading these books too, right? Where are you at in all the
Yeah, so
stuff?
we made plans on, what was it, a Monday, to watch Shadow and Bone on Sunday. And at that point, I had read the first book in the original trilogy. And I thought to myself, well, this show is supposed to be based on the original trilogy and Six of Crows. So what if I just read everything before Sunday? And then I realized that was probably a bad idea, but I did it anyway. So I've read the original trilogy and Six of Crows and King of Scars, which takes place afterwards. And I am partway through Rule of Wolves.
Yeah, y'all are doing a lot more than I have for this. I read Six of Crows and was it The Crooked Kingdom? Is that the sequel to that? Okay, I'm getting some nods, so cool. Doing all right. And then yeah, I read that years ago, and then the show came out and I was kind of like, okay, I'll watch the show. And yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with it. I really liked watching the show. It was definitely made better by getting to hang out with all of you all in a Netflix party and just talk about nonsense and watch all the Darkling talk take place and things like that. But yeah, I guess if this is spoiler free, a good way to structure it is to try to make it something that's helpful for folks who haven't seen it yet. And we actually got an awesome question from one of our wonderful friends out on Twitter, or Benjamin at Literature and Lo-Fi, who tagged like all of us, basically, I think all of us, right? And said basically like, at what point does it make sense to jump into watching the Shadow and Bone TV show? And he was asking, what do you recommend? Should you read the books first, or should you just jump in? And yeah, I'll turn that to you all.
And I think it depends on your personality, because didn't all of us came to it with something different? Like Sarah had read everything out there. I'm someone who likes to read the book first, so I definitely read the first of the Shadow and Bone, and then I made it halfway through Six of Crows, and I just ran out of time. But I would say Six of Crows is actually less necessary to read before watching the TV show, but because the plot isn't the same.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, definitely interrupt. I would keep talking forever.
Yeah, I was going to say that from the perspective of someone who made a point of reading the books before watching the show, I actually kind of think that was a bad idea, because I don't think that the Shadow and Bone original trilogy is actually that great of a series. And there are a lot of improvements that are made to the characters in the show. So I think that you'll be fine if you don't have that background. And then as for Six of Crows, like, I liked the books so much better than the bits of like plot that we got in the show involving those characters, that I was thinking, oh, it's a shame that they're not just doing the Six of Crows plot.
Yeah, I felt some of that too, as someone who only read the Six of Crows stuff and really enjoyed it, and it kind of felt like some of this hopping back and forth that between two very different tones. And for me, the tone of the Six of Crows style stuff, which is this more roguish, heist feeling, morally gray character situation going on, compared to the more standard chosen one-y feeling YA situation going on in the main Shadow and Bone stuff. I did kind of find myself having more fun with the Six of Crows things. And yeah, I'm wondering, other folks, were you finding that? Did reading Shadow and Bone change your perspective on those kind of things?
I mean, I'm kind of like Hannah. I like to read the books first just because I like to discuss the differences while I'm watching the show. But I'm one of those people, I don't like to be confused at all when I'm watching it. So I like to have the context of all of the world building and character stuff, like before I go into the show. But I don't know. I don't know if I would have preferred to read Six of Crows, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, but it's just like, because they had to create a totally new storyline, it just kind of felt forced at times. So I don't know if I would have read that one.
I have an unrelated question. Someone explain where these series are in relation to each other. Are they do they take place at the same time with different characters? Is kind of what I have gathered from the last couple minutes.
Are you asking about the show or the books?
The books, sorry. Because there was Shadow of Bones and then Six of Crows seemed to be two separate series.
Yeah, they're two separate series, and Six of Crows takes place a couple of years, I believe, after the end of Shadow and Bone.
Okay, thank you.
But the show decided to like have them parallel to each other in time, and that was interesting. I agree.
That's a
Dylan.
choice.
It's definitely a choice, and I very much preferred the Six of Crows content. Like it was just so much more fun to watch. And Shadow and Bone, they did make good changes. I agree with Sarah on that, but it was less fun to watch than the Six of Crows people.
Yeah, I just
more fun.
I just wanted Six of Crows. Like I wanted that to be the storyline and the characters and the like. I didn't care about the Shadow and Bones except for the Darkling. I mean, you know, my heart goes out for my trash villain, but
yeah, Sandra and Sarah, both huge fans of Darkling over there. I do definitely appreciate his facial hair situation, and we do have a talking point that I sent out on this discussion sheet comparing Darkling and Charles's facial hair. So like who wore it best type situation, but we'll save that for later. And yeah, so I always found that kind of that you throw that phrase around all the time. There's a trash villain. And I was pretty much asking you on a Twitter thread a little while back. I was like, what is a trash villain? So I know that whatever it is, you and Sandra seem to like it a lot. Can you say more about that?
So for me, a trash villain is, I mean, like obviously the villain, but hot and evil. And you just can't, like, he smolders.
Oh yeah, he smolders.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that guilty pleasure. You know it's bad for you. You can't sustain your life on it, but he's just like, he's a treat. He's
Exactly.
It sounds like trash refers more to how you feel about liking him than the character itself.
I mean, I don't actually feel guilty about liking him though. I just think he's a horrible person. I admit that. That's why he's trash. But I love him anyway. I don't know. I just put words together. And, yeah, I just put words together and I hope that they make sense. They don't, but I use them anyway.
I do think trash villain has a certain type of energy. Like, that's right. You're not wrong.
Yeah. See, it just it's a feeling.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, Lily, because that was part of what I was thinking too, especially after I watched the show, is like I actually really like the Darkling character. And I was like, I think there's a lot of nuance to the character that I won't get into because of the spoiler-free format. I wouldn't want, Lily, I wouldn't want to ruin all
Rob
this
me
awesome
of that,
nuance.
yeah.
Yes, I would never want to do that to you. So, but I was very impressed actually by the way that this show dealt with that trash villain situation of the like, okay, well, and I was saying during, I was like, I see the appeal of Darkling. All right, like
Thank you, Dylan.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? Let's be honest. Not the kind of person you expect to have a stable interpersonal relationship with, but I assume that's not what folks are looking for when they're talking about trash villains. And yeah, it's this. But like a really interesting character and like shockingly nuanced, which surprised me with all the like trash villain talk, because I was thinking kind of how you were saying, Lily. I was like, oh, you mean like a bad character? Like what's good about that? Oh, I wanted to talk too more about that. I brought this up earlier, like the pacing and the balance between. I know we were kind of focusing more on that from the perspective of what do you want to read? Do you want to read? Do you want to just jump in? Which we totally didn't answer. So sorry, Benjamin. I'm just gonna. Maybe I'll tweet. Does anyone have thoughts that?
I mean, my vote is that he should just watch the show. Like he shouldn't necessarily feel compelled to read the books before he watches it. And I don't think that he should read Shadow and Bone at all, actually, because again, I don't think it was that great. But Six of Crows, I think he would like.
If you like knowing everything, then read the books beforehand. Like me, like for example, if I'm playing a video game, I like to explore every nook and cranny, even if I know there's nothing there. And I just like to know everything beforehand.
We also did mention when we were watching the show together that like people who hadn't read Six of Crows wouldn't understand why like two people were on it. Like, not to give any spoilers, but there is a side story that if you didn't read Six of Crows, you're like, what are we watching right now? It just makes zero sense out of context. But that's the only thing I'll say on that.
I was actually talking with a friend of mine who had watched the show without reading the books. And I mentioned that point, and she was like, oh, I didn't have any trouble with it.
And that's, I hope I'm getting Nina, right? As a character,
Yeah.
I guess I decide what is or isn't free for the FTF audience. So I
You have the
appreciate y'all.
power.
Jeez, this is not good. This is why, Charles, I don't know what I'm going to do with this power, but Charles is going to edit it. So it's on him too, listeners, if you feel spoiled by that. But yeah, the Nina storyline is this, yeah, I don't know. I was thinking that as a Six of Crows reader, where I was like, nothing really happens here that's relevant to anything else that's happening. And I don't know, you have a full season to take up that much time. It was like, okay. But we see where it's building. I know that Sandra is very excited about where it's going. So yeah, I don't know. It is interesting though, Sarah, that you said it didn't bother your friend there.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, I felt personally that you could have cut all of Nina's scenes and still have a coherent story, and that maybe it would have been a stronger story. But she was like, no, I liked Nina. I understood what was happening, and it made sense to me.
Yeah, I watched the second time I watched it with a friend. They were just like, why don't they just? Okay, that's a spoiler.
Just go for it. Just say it. Just say it.
No, why don't they just
don't
fly over the shadow fold? So they had like zero context in like how technologically advanced they were. So I was explaining the different orders, and they're like, do the different color robes mean anything? And that was a fun watch.
They do. Yeah.
They do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Was I supposed to know that? Okay.
I don't think that was a spoiler because I read the Amazon summary and you didn't give any information that I hadn't gleaned from that. And so I'm declaring summaries not spoilers.
Out of the book, like before you ever get into a prologue or anything, there's like with the map, there's a explanation.
Yeah, that's not a spoiler.
Lily, from your perspective of a person who hasn't read or watched yet, do you feel like you have a way you're leaning about this whole, would you be more likely to jump in or read the book first?
It sounds like, well, the plan that I have formulated just now is to probably watch the show and then read Six of Crows. It sounds like that's maybe the route I plan on going.
Yeah.
Trusting your co-host judgment. Skip. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. Shadow and Bone, I got a lot of like mixed reviews and stuff that people were saying about the book. So I was not really like, I want to definitely dive in to that beforehand. And I also just don't personally get too caught up on things like making sure I read the books before getting into the show or anything. I know I can just see Hannah cringing. We had a little exchange about that on Twitter.
It depends so much on the book series, though. I don't know. I encourage people to watch the Lord of the Rings movies first because it can help you to have faces to put to all of the names, and it makes it a lot easier to read the books afterwards, I think. So, not exactly on topic, but I do think it depends.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
I have, in fact, seen all of the Lord of the Rings movies, but have not finished the book series in my lifetime. So,
well, that's all right. You're doing it in the right order.
Yeah. See?
Yeah, those books can be feel a little bit dated, not surprisingly, because they are. And I think that it's watching the movies first for me too with the Lord of the Rings books. I was like, I was happy I could picture Orlando Bloom as Legolas and things like that. It kind of makes it a little bit more fun when you're getting. Yeah, I do like the Lord of the Rings and all that kind of stuff. I think the things it leans into, like world building and whatnot, are not relevant to the discussion on Shadow and Bone. But also not the biggest things I care about, for the record. And anyway, I talking about Shadow and Bone. which is what we're doing here.
I'm sorry I distracted everybody.
No, that's on me. I want to check in. What things do you folks feel were the best aspects of the show, or the things that most stuck out to you? Your favorite, I would say, over best.
I have a suggestion for that
Yeah,
answer. That's the word I was looking for. Ben Barnes's face.
that's up there.
That was my favorite bit about Shadow and Bone.
I'm seeing
agree.
some nodding from Sandra. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hannah, you'd go Jesper's face, mostly just
Jesper's
faces.
face. Well, no, Jesper's personality. He had the
Yeah.
best personality. So
Yeah.
Personality is very attractive. Yeah.
that was very, because you guys were crushing over the Darkling pretty hard. And I was like, no one's talking about Jesper.
He's not getting his due.
I
Yeah.
feel like we should just be talking about him.
I do love Jesper. Like, don't get me wrong, but I'm a sucker for hot, evil, dubiously moral villains. I can't help it.
Yeah.
This whole what's your favorite part, the face stuff actually is part of it for me, because it's the casting. I feel like everyone was so on point with how I pictured them when I read Six of Crows. And Jesper's even more on point than was the way he was written for me. And there's something, I was saying this when we were in the Netflix party, I was like, there's something you could write a character like he's super charismatic and he's got all these amazing things, he's winking all the time, but words on page can't quite convey it in the same way, for me anyway, as when there's a guy on there, and I didn't take down the actor's name or anything, but the actor who played Jesper just freaking exudes charisma, and when he's winking and he's having fun and all this kind of stuff, he just completely steals the show the whole time. It was amazing, and they all did kind of look like how I expected it to.
Yeah, I think you're right that the casting was really on point. They did very, very well. I also, on a less superficial note, I really enjoyed the updates that they made to Mal's character, because I found that in the books, Mal was pretty unsympathetic. I feel like it's not too big of a spoiler, and Lily, correct me if you find this wrong, but I think it's not too big of a spoiler to say that he's one of like the love interests, and
Yeah.
he's you don't root for him in the books because he's kind of a jerk, whereas you do, like, he's sweet in the show.
I definitely agree with that. The updates they did to Mal, and I liked all the additional like changes they made to everything. Like, it just seemed, the show seemed a bit deeper. Like, the books seemed more superficial in a lot of ways. And so the changes they made a better experience, in my opinion. And that was great.
Yeah, I agree completely, Hannah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes hand in hand with the changes to Mal, but I enjoyed what they did with Alina's character too. That was something that I thought was missing in the original trilogy, is like, if you're going to have these, northern and southern border issues, that there would be like race issues and stuff like that propaganda, that type of thing. So I enjoyed how they changed her character.
I had mixed feelings about that, because I agree that it makes sense for there to be racial issues, but it felt more like it was just set dressing to me. Like, it never, if they were going to bring it up, I wish that they would have handled it in a deeper way, rather than just throw some racism, like, slurs in there.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like at times it was super forced, especially Zoya's character, because like, you never get that sense from the books, and I actually really like Zoya's character throughout all the series. But yeah, you're right there.
If you guys were in charge of the adaptation, is there anything you would have done differently?
I mean, it would have just been 8 episodes of Ben Barnes.
I was going to say that, but differently. Yeah.
I would say I definitely would have mixed up the stories. Like, I just don't understand why they made that choice to have both books at the same time. Like, this is Netflix. The series was low budget, but lots of people have watched it. So it's like, why wouldn't you just have one single book and then continue on the story? But
yeah, I feel like in the Shadow and Bone fandom, Six of Crows, those characters are by far like, the favorites of everyone. So I wonder if they were just worried about getting buy-in from people if they didn't have them shoved into this season somehow.
That's
I don't
so
know. For me, I was kind of bummed out because the pacing just felt so fast. You have only 8 episodes to set the world building, introduce all the characters, and then you're forcing this, creating this new Crows storyline into all of it. It just felt really fast, and I wanted more time, like more character development between, Mal and Alina in the little palace and everyone there. And it was very fast.
Yeah, I agree.
I do find it ironic if their decision was like, we don't know if they'll buy into the series. And it's like, have you met people who read books and then get content made on their books? Like,
yeah, it would be really cool to get and I guess at this point we're very unlikely to ever get a just Six of Crows show, which I feel like is a disappointment for some folks in this Zoom, including myself, because I don't know, it's a bummer because the way they get wrapped up into Alina's storyline and all this stuff, for me, they didn't get the same chance to breathe with coming up with these master plans and stuff like that. And they're, I guess, more reactive and less proactive. While you think of a character like Kaz and the way he shows up in the books, he's super proactive. He's on top of everything. And here he's just kind of following around stuff and trying to figure out what to do from there.
Yeah, I think his character was probably the one I had the biggest issue with, because I just pictured someone darker and more serious in the books. And there was almost so much comical humor and just things not working out at all whenever things happen in, the Six of Crows duology, but they always get what they want in the end. And it was just, yeah.
I also thought that because they were trying to push so much into just this first season, that they lost some of the nuance that you get in the development of Inej and Kaz's relationship, which was something that I loved about the books, about how slowly their relationship develops. And it felt like they just sped through a lot of that.
Oh yeah, it was super in your face.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you on that. There's only so much subtlety, it feels like, that they could get across while mashing together two already various levels of subtle, I guess, as stories, right? Like, there's nothing subtle about Darkling. Let's be, nuanced, but not subtle, right? The guy's all over the place, just exuding his Darkling energy. We're saying guy has chemistry with everyone and everything, even the table scene. Lily, when you watch, Lily, when you watch this, keep an eye out for that scene, because just everything that this guy interacts with, just so much chemistry. And then you could see ways in which they're trying to balance leaning into that sort of like, where this fun YA romp, but also there are these deep themes to it. And at times they did a great job of balancing it. And other times it was like, I don't know, at one point, like Inej, who awesome, great. The actress did an incredible job, I thought, portraying her.
She was perfect.
Freaking amazing, right? Like, so cool. So I was digging all the Inej stuff. And then at one point I don't think this is a spoiler. I don't personally feel like, Lily, like I'm ruining the show for you by saying this. At one point she takes off all the knives she's holding, and there's just like these sound effects, and it's like not the sound of taking off knives that you're holding. It was like bing, ching. And I was like, what? Like, what is going on here?
I'm down.
And it was like, yes, exactly. And I was like, it's already cool that she's taking all these knives. It was like a lot of knives, so like the fun of the moment was, look at how many knives she has on herself. And it was like, not that knives make, like, knives are weapons, boom boom. It was like, okay, like, so Lily, let me know if that ends up ruining the show for you. I'm sorry. So
expect many angry tweets from me.
Yeah, well, I hope to get lots of angry tweets. Just tweet at me at Charles MC. Or whatever. Yeah, you can direct all of them right there, and he'll forward them right to me.
So, if the character's name is the Darkling, does that imply there is a bigger dark? No? Maybe? All right, just curious.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if everyone's tight-lipped right now because they're like, oh, you better watch out for that, the real dark. It's like, he's just the Darkling. I don't know.
That's just what it sounds like
That was not
to
even in my
me.
head, but I could totally see that now. So
Lily, you may have ruined that name for me now. Now that's all I'm gonna think of. It's just a little darkling.
Yeah.
It's to show that he's evil but still has a sweet side.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Because when I first heard Darkling, I imagined the little like dust sprites from My Neighbor Totoro. That's a Darkling.
I mean, imagine how. I hope it's just bringing the trash villain mentality to a whole nother level is going to be the dark. I don't know how they can top what's already being brought, but let's hope if that's a real thing, that's where it's going.
Also, small question that may just break this entire episode, but isn't admitting that he's a trash villain kind of a spoiler in and of itself?
I mean, but he has what good character is named the Darkling?
That's fair.
Like, I feel like that's not a spoiler. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I can speak to that some because y'all were calling him trash villain, and I was asking you to introspect on that on Twitter. What is trash in this context? But I went in knowing he was a villain, I guess then, and I don't know. It's hard to tell if that mentality made it be like, well, of course, like look at him, like look at him and his name.
I'm sorry if I spoiled anything for you.
Yeah, I didn't feel spoiled, but yeah, listeners at Charles _ MC or something. I actually don't know Charles's Twitter handle, but that's a great place to send if you feel this has spoiled anything for you. So yeah, I think that, I don't know, he's named the dark. I feel like it's like in the pop culture of the show, I guess, that he's a villain. Yeah. So if you're not following that at all, then maybe that's a spoiler, but people are just talking about it everywhere. So
yeah,
it's not hard to guess.
I don't think it will ruin anyone's experience to have this one mini spoiler for the show. I don't think you're going to watch it and be like, now the show is ruined. So,
so I want to check in about any of the other things that y'all, I know Lily asked, what would you change or other things like that. Anything else that folks were hoping to see more of if they read the books or things like that? And it's an interesting topic.
I mean, I want more Darkling and Darkling backstory. And honestly, this is probably one of my least favorite parts of this season was just some of the stuff that they created for him to explain why he is the way that he is. Hopefully I'm not spoiling anything. So I don't know. I didn't really buy it. So, but I think I heard that the budget was pretty low for the production of the show with costumes and stuff like that. So I would hope, if we get a second season that they could spend more there. But I think that they did really well considering.
That's my favorite moment when I saw the king dressed up and I was like, oh, they do not have a good clothing budget.
Oh yeah, that was hilarious.
That was very distracting.
Yeah, the king did kind of look like he just finished shopping at a thrift store to pick up his king outfit, and which is fine because I don't know. I thought the action scenes and the special effects and things like that were cool and awesome, and I'll take a king that doesn't quite look as majestic as he possibly could have. But it was, as soon as, was it you that pointed that out first, Hannah, or whatever?
It was because it looked like he had picked up his costume from like a Disney store. It was just not good. But that was really, the clothing was probably the only part where you saw the cost, because I did think the special effects looked really good. for what they had.
Like the antlers. When I was reading the original trilogy, I was like, what the hell is this supposed to even look like? Like a bracelet of antlers? Like I had a hard time picturing it, but I like how they did it in the show. Like that was really cool.
I thought it was cool, except that it was different from how it's described in the books. So that sort of took me out of it because it's described more as a necklace.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, but this is one of those areas again where I think reading the books kind of did me a disservice, because I was just focused on, oh, this is different and not this is actually really cool in and of itself.
I hear you on that. That happens to me all the time. That's part of why I'm like not overly into the having to read the books first, because it almost puts you in this place of now everything's compared to what you thought it was like in the books. And
but I like
everything.
It's part of the fun.
I'm not shocked by that, knowing you, Sandra, but I don't know. It's like, I think they did such a good job of casting with the Six of Crows folks. I guess I didn't do too much of that, but even then it was like, someone was mentioning in the party chat, it was like that Kaz was too greasy. I was like,
it was a joke.
It was like greasier than you expected. And it's like, luckily for me, I was like, no, that's exactly the amount of greasiness that I was imagining Kaz is having. But yeah, it just puts you in this position of everything becomes relative to it. But I almost feel like I like Lily's plan a lot, and that might be something I would recommend to folks for this one, of you watch the show and then you go back to the books, and it's kind of, it doesn't have the same level of like, but I imagine Kaz as, it's like, now you're imagining Kaz as probably the actor, and that's that. And there's some nicety to that. I think you've got a good plan there, Lily.
Well, me too, obviously.
I see you don't need my approval for that. So I was like, yes.
I always love hearing people tell me I'm right, though.
Well, you're right, Lily. You did it. So, all right. The only last thing I wanted to make sure we touched on is the big Charles versus Darkling facial hair situation. Charles is not here, which gives, of course, you the right to say with complete honesty who you think has better facial hair. None of that pressure. Yes, he'll hear it when he's editing, but yeah,
all of the listeners are going to wonder why there's just a long blank spot here. Where'd all the sound go?
I'm going to make the controversial choice and go with, I prefer the goat's facial hair. So the goat show. Yeah, that's my vote. Sorry,
the goat
Charles.
Was a standout character. Yeah.
Come on, Sarah.
I mean, I feel like the answer for me is obvious. It's the Darkling. I can't say no to him. Sorry, Charles.
I can't say no to him either.
Well, Sandra and I are Team Darkling.
I've only seen Charles's facial hair, so of course I'm going to have to choose him.
There you go, Charles.
Thank you, Lily. I'll go with Charles too, which will give us a tie here. But I might be biased, the whole lifelong friend thing. So we'll end with a tie, given Hannah's abstention. That's right. You're a lawyer.
I like chaos, so
yes. So
abstain from.
Nice. Yeah. Well, that's all. And you did I sent that before people get mad at me for putting everyone on the spot. I sent that beforehand. They knew that Charles Darkling question was coming. So yeah, but we've got a tie, which is pretty great. I don't know if I would call Charles a trash villain per se. Maybe a trash hero.
Now there's a new one.
Yeah.
That thing? Is there such a thing as a trash hero?
Yeah, Riddick. I say, making references to sci-fi movies no one else has seen. Sorry.
I've seen it. It's just been ages.
All right.
Lily, your tradition coming on FTF is exposing me for not knowing anything about sci-fi while I stare blankly. So, yes, I still have to follow up with you on Sci-Fi Rex, as I apparently said on the episode that I would. I'll do that afterward. Get that.
Well, for context, Riddick is played by Vin Diesel. That's really all you need to know.
Okay. I
Yeah.
feel like Vin Diesel's a trash hero in a lot of things.
Exactly. That's exactly what he is.
All right. Well, this was super fun. I'm so happy that y'all were down to come on. I mean, and just like to do that Netflix party that kind of materialized very out of nowhere, but you all were so awesome and enthusiastic to come on board, and I had such a freaking amazing time. I had such a blast talking with y'all while watching it. I'm now like, why do I watch anything just by myself? Like that's it's like, so I'm just super pumped y'all are down to do that, to have this conversation. And please, everyone, go back to the beginning of the episode and hear all those social media plugs, and go follow anyone you haven't already followed. And yes, it's an awesome crew here, and just so grateful that y'all were down to have this conversation.
And thank you, Dylan, for organizing all of this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We know it
Yeah.
wasn't easy.
Oh, thank you. No. Y'all made it so easy by being awesome and flexible with things. Yeah, it's never great when I am the person, not Charles, in charge of the organization, but it's just such an awesome crew that even I was able to get them all together to do things. So yeah, thanks so much, for real. That's pretty much that. So I don't know, Charles gets like the outro. I'm like, get that sweet outro music pumping. And then he has like this whole setup where he's sharing the sound, and then we talk over it. Maybe he'll add that in post. Oh no.
Oh, this was lovely, guys. Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.